Gentrification to me is going into a poor neighborhood, moving the residents out and renovating the neighborhood and moving wealthy people in.
To me, gentrification is the act of a class change from lower class to upper class. It's from one class comes into an area and starts to change it for themselves. Some examples of gentrification is redlining, white flight, basically to stop the development of lower income communities so it'd be easier for them to come in, take land, and use it for themselves. And it affects neighborhoods and communities for sometimes for better, but mostly for worse. Some.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
My definition of justification is when buildings are like teared down and they rebuild them for the more like people that can afford it. Like they rebuilding buildings in a more modern way.
Hello, my name is Michael and I'm a student at Anacostia High School.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I'm a student at Anacostia High School, and today we're interviewing Miss Black. So today we're going to interview you about gentrification within DC. We have a couple questions for you. Did you personally experience gentrification within DC? Like, and how has that affected you?
No, I myself have not dealt with gentrification. But I feel like gentrification still affected myself. Just growing up in DC, DC is known as being like chocolate city. It's changing. They building a lot. I feel like they moving us out, us colored people out, and bringing, more stuff in the community for other people, other kind. What I will say is that I was able to purchase a home.
Do you know anyone who has experience gentrification?
No, not off the top of my head. Just not personally, but just like growing up in Washington D.C., primarily Southeast area, a lot of stores that used to be around, like when I was growing up, is no longer around anymore. Either they are apartment buildings now, or like a little shopping mall. So, and I feel like now I understand why that was going on, because of gentrification.
Okay, was yours or another community that you were a part of was affected by gentrification, and how so?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like the Boys and Girls Club is a place where I used to go when I was young, and due to gentrification, they had to close the Boys and Girls Club down, which is still nothing at the moment. But due to gentrification, it had to be closed down.
What was DC like to you before and after gentrification?
So like I stated earlier, DC was known as Chocolate City, meaning it was a lot of more of us colored people in the city. But now it's like mixture. But I just feel like they just doing things for other people and not doing anything for us. So building homes, building condos, making it be so high that it forces us to, live in other areas of the world.
Okay, why do you think DC was most most impacted by gentrification? Why do you think they chose DC?
Because DC, because of the poor urban areas that we have, it's just not a lot of it's not a lot of resources that we have, and if it is a lot of resources, 9 times out of 10 we don't know about them. So.
Well, thank you, Miss Black, for your answers and whatever you think. Well, my name is Kevin Jackson. I'm a student at Anacostia High School.
I'm a student at Anacostia High School.
And my name is Charles Dussel. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Development at Marcus Tate.
Okay, so today we're just interviewing you about gentrification and the effects it has on you and your neighborhood, your surroundings. So the question we have today is, did you personally experience gentrification?
I didn't personally experience what may be called displacement due to gentrification, but I grew up, was born and raised in Washington, D.C., had property in Washington, D.C., and has witnessed gentrification come to Washington, D.C., especially now in Ward 8, and then definitely in Northwest when it initially started, and seeing how the city has transitioned since gentrification has started and has been at its peak since it started.
Do you know anyone personally who has experienced gentrification?
Yes, I know a couple of people, that I grew up with in the neighborhood here in Ward 8 that lived in Prairie Farms and in certain neighborhoods that no longer exist, that were pushed out due to redevelopment in different communities where they had to be placed into communities that were outside of Southeast where they grew up at, because of redevelopment and some new people coming to the city, buying the properties that they remodeled that those individuals used to live in before gentrification started happening in a massive way that it is now.
So, was yours or another community that you are a part of affected by gentrification?
Yes. Where I grew up at, it was, I grew up in Ward 8 Southeast, so my whole community right now, as we speak, has been affected by gentrification and is continuously being affected by gentrification. I know a lot of people that I grew up with in my community no longer live in Ward 8 or in Southeast anymore due to redevelopment and a lot of people coming and buying property, remodeling them, and basically selling them for higher prices now. And then I've witnessed new individuals coming into our community, new businesses coming into our community, pushing old ones out. I see property taxes are becoming higher and higher in this ward, and a lot of people that traditionally, live in specifically Ward 8, but all over Washington, D.C. as a whole, are no longer able to afford to live in these communities that we grew up in, coming up in Washington, D.C. So it definitely has impacted my community. I see it. I still see it, being as though I still live in the community and work in the community. The people are becoming different by the day, and a lot of the people who were traditionally living here and grew up in these communities here aren't able to afford to live in certain areas in which they were raising their families or they were growing up within this community. Any stores or businesses that went through gentrification? I do have, I believe one of the restaurants that were here in Ward 8 called Cheers dealt with the price of them being able to lease the space that they were operating their restaurant out of. It was called Cheers at the Big Chair. they were displaced due to gentrification, where I believe the owner of the building was raising the lease prices due to all of the changes that were happening within the community, and they weren't able to sustain their business due to that. So that's a form of gentrification. That building owner, knowing that there's other people that are willing to pay the price for higher lease costs and pushing out their original tenant because of that. So that's one of the businesses that I've seen be affected by gentrification.
And for the final question, why do you think DC has experienced more gentrification than other areas, other cities?
I think it's the nation's capital. So I think being in the nation's capital, obviously, what some of the officials, government officials that are in office now want to see our city do is grow economically. So when you growing economically, that means bringing bigger business to the city, bringing people who are in business to the city to live here, in which they may make larger salaries where they can afford higher property costs. So I think, considering we're in the nation's capital, where policies are passed, where everyone across the world have to come when it comes to, passing laws and the political realm of things happen, it was a goal, or it's been a mission for the leaders that are in government to make sure that this city is thriving economically. Definitely considering it's the nation's capital of the whole country. So that's why I think it's impacting us the way it is in such a fast-paced manner. And I think it's only going to get worse and worse as time progresses.
So, thank you, Mr. Charlie, for voicing your opinion and answering our questions today.
Hello, my name is Dondre Blackwell, and I'm here with
Miss Slade.
Miss Slade. Do you know the definition of justification?
Do you think you could break it down a little bit for me?
I'm gonna make it short and simple. So, don't you know in Washington, D.C., the area that's called Berry Farms?
Yes.
So that's what that basically is. It's tearing down apartments and like remodeling it for like more people that can afford the more expensive stuff to come in and come by. And it's kicking out like the people that really can't afford like the more expensive things or more expensive living, I should say. So the example that I gave you, you think you can break down justification in your own definition?
From what you're telling me, it seems like it is targeted remodeling of a specific area, usually related to us higher incomes, which has consequences causing those who are there who cannot meet the new standard of living.
Okay. My second question is, do you know anybody that has been through justification in Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
My third question is, like, you live in Washington, D.C., correct?
No, not anymore.
Okay. So before you moved from out of Washington, D.C., how was the community before justification happened?
I lived uptown, so the community was older at the time when I lived. I lived on 14th and Rhode Island, and so it was a bit older when I was living there.
Okay. Since you see uptown DC now, which is Northwest, what changes did they make in your old community?
From restaurants to the grocery stores that they put in there, definitely the cost of living in the apartments that are there, and even though they weren't remodeled or anything, the price of them has gone up significantly. And so it seems now the demographics are a bit younger, a bit lighter, and have a bit more money.
Okay. My next question is, how do you think the living situation will be if you still lived in uptown DC? Okay, And my last question will be, how do you feel after the situation with gentrification in Uptown DC? Like if you was to drive past, like how would you feel like if they tear down like some of your old memories and stuff like that? How would you feel?
I mean, I think where I lived was one situation, but I think working here at Anacostia, you definitely seen the effects of gentrification here, just in the school population size. But we used to serve a lot of students from Berry Farms, so once they tore down that area, many of those students got displaced. And working here for as long as I have, even the families who I would come in contact with coming to work, you've seen that they have moved. The houses are a little bit more dilapidated for those who have not moved yet, and you see a lot of housing being torn down and rebuilt for Caucasians to come in and be in this historic area. And it's kind of sad because they're families who were here for years, like had generations here, but then they can no longer afford to live here, so they had to move.
Okay, that's all for today.